In this video, I'm going to show you how to align with your own natural ascension process, and I'm also going to explain how it is that we might be getting set up for an artificial ascension path. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean. Welcome to my channel where I give you the knowledge you need to spiritually awaken and ascend with clarity and confidence. Now, in my last video, I told you how a certain ascension window had closed due to the rapid advancement of AI on our planet. Naturally, I received a lot of questions about what does this mean and what should we do next. So I'm going to answer some of those questions in two parts. In today's video, which is part 1, I'm going to talk about what we need to do next to make sure that we stay on our own ascension path. And then I'm going to share a story about how mind control is likely being used to set us up for a false AI ascension. And then in my next video, which will be part 2, I'll explain how real ascension for the planet works and what our role is as human beings in that process. So let's start with what we need to do to stay on a natural ascension timeline instead of allowing ourselves to be railroaded into an artificial one. We need to start by having our consciousness firmly anchored in the natural world in terms of our natural design as human beings. Now, there are two main things that we need to focus on. The first one is our hearts, and the second one is the truth about the natural design of our entire physical embodiment. So let's start with the heart. So what exactly is the heart and why is it so important? So in terms of where the heart is, it actually lies underneath your breath. It's really at the deepest core of your innermost being. Now, you can connect with your heart through meditation, but I also want to share with you another way that you can clearly recognize it and really connect with it in the most intimate possible way. See, your heart is the deepest part of your being that has an incredible longing for the deepest, most accurate truth there could ever possibly be. It's the part of you that remembers how life originally was intended to be in this universe, and it just has a natural, deep longing for that experience to return. It's unadulterated by all the excuses, the explanations, all the junk that we tend to filter that experience through. It's absolutely pure. And I really think the best way to really recognize it as a very real thing is to just connect with that deep inner feeling of longing for, oh gosh, if only life could be a certain way. And when I say a certain way, I mean without any limitations whatsoever, including without any of the limitations that we experience on this particular planet and in this dimension. So if you want to start to connect with the voice of your heart, look for that place in you that has that natural feeling of longing for that truth. Now, it's also important to realize that the heart is the part of us that we have been trained from birth to completely shut down. So for that reason, it can be a little difficult to know how to recognize what really is that voice of the heart. What does that feel like? So I'm going to give you two very relatable examples so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So let's say, for example, that you fall madly in love with someone. Now, in the beginning, you just know in your heart that that experience, that incredible experience of that relationship is meant to last forever. You can't even imagine it being any other way. I mean, you just know in your heart it's never going to change. See, that is your heart's connection to reality. That's your heart telling you loud and clear, this is what life is supposed to be like. But that's not what happens here on Earth, is it? I mean, you can give it probably about 6 months or sometimes even less, and then the problems begin. Now, see, if we were really true to our heart and to that first message, and I'm speaking about this on a collective basis. And we started to see some kind of deterioration beginning to happen in that once incredibly awesome relationship, we would immediately recognize, wait a second, there's something seriously wrong on this planet, that things are coming in to ruin that experience. See, we would immediately recognize it as there's an issue with this dimension that we're living in, because that is not supposed to happen. But that's not what we do, is it? No, we just say, oh, well, I guess the heart was wrong. Relationships are hard work. You just have to work in order to stay together. And of course, all the evidence proves that to be reality, right? Which it is on Earth, which is why there's a problem. Now, I'll give you a second example that is extremely relatable. See, when you're young, you cannot possibly believe that you're ever going to get old. In fact, even if you're older, it's almost impossible to look at a young person, meaning a young adult. You can't even imagine that person getting old. It's almost impossible to even picture that. See, that's our real intelligence speaking to us that is being informed by the heart. That's our real intelligence speaking to us and telling us there's no such thing as aging. And then, even when we do start to age on this planet, we still look in the mirror in disbelief, like, what the heck is that? I mean, it's like it's the weirdest thing ever, right? Because it's not supposed to happen. See, everybody knows that, right? But on Earth, there's a way to take care of that problem of the heart and the real intelligence trying to inform us, hey guys, there's something wrong here. You're not supposed to be aging like this. So here's how they fix that problem on Earth. Part of how they fix it is called birthdays. Birthdays are there to remind you to age and to instruct you about exactly how and when it's supposed to happen. It's to absolutely ensure that you program your life and your body to deteriorate at the prescribed rate. So instead of telling ourselves, wow, if we're aging and deteriorating, there's something really wrong on this planet. Instead, we just tell ourselves that our original knowing about being eternally young was just plain wrong. See, we tend to abandon our hearts at every single turn because we look around and we say, well, all of the evidence here on Earth proves that the heart is wrong. But I have another suggestion for you guys. Why is it that we don't look around at all this proof that the heart is wrong? How come we don't flip that and say, no, actually, if we were true to our hearts, we would say, hey, this proves that something on this planet is wrong. See? But because we have that reversed and we decide that the heart is wrong, when we get ourselves into a critical situation like Ascension, we don't really have the bearings to know how to even align with our heart anymore because we've been negating it all our lives. So rediscovering your heart and connecting with it again is probably going to be a bit of a process. Meditation will probably help, but it actually needs to be even more than that. Your heart has probably been trying to tell you all your life that there's something very wrong on this planet that needs to be corrected. So when we say things like live from your heart or trust your heart, we're not just talking about using your intuition and being nice to people. We're talking about a truly radical change in perspective. See, because your heart is going to give you vital information about Ascension and what it means. If you truly listen to your heart, you are going to experience a radical paradigm shift that's going to blow your mind. And it's the paradigm shift that you're going to need if you ever want to ascend or if you ever want to help this earth to ascend. Now, let's talk about the body, which for purposes of Ascension is equally as important. Your body is the natural vehicle that houses your consciousness. It is a sacred vessel that is intimately connected to this planet as a whole. Your body is as beautiful and as important as any part of the natural world on this planet. You can pick any part of this gorgeous earth, like the mountains, the oceans, the forests, and know that your physical body is a part of that gorgeousness. Your physical body is absolutely astonishing and amazing in ways that we haven't even begun to tap into. So you don't ever want to lose the connection to your natural physical body, which is actually like a universe unto itself. And more than that, it is completely integrated with the larger natural universe that we all reside within. So when you consider your heart, your consciousness, your intelligence, and your natural physical body, you are talking about an absolute treasure, an unimaginable universe that you literally carry with you right now. This is something that we have almost never explored on this planet. Now, I know scientists have explored the body. That stuff's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we ourselves engaging in that exploration. See, if we did, there would be no question that we would ascend. We would absolutely ascend naturally. See, because we already have all the ingredients right within us. So everything I've said so far are the key points to align with if you want to be able to align yourself with your own natural ascension process. Now, I want to talk about how the controllers and AI are going to try and completely sabotage this. They're going to do it mostly using mind control, because what we do with our minds affects how we apply our consciousness. Now, they've already started this in a big way, and they are definitely targeting us spiritually. They're trying to get us to all believe the exact same things and to use the exact same words and phrases. Now, I want to share with you guys a little story about a massive wildfire that I experienced and what I learned during that period about mind control. So back in 2000, my family and I were living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is very close to Los Alamos National Laboratories, which, if you don't know what that is, that's where the atomic bomb was invented. How wonderful is that? So what happened is the Forest Service, which is a federal agency, started a controlled burn, which got rapidly out of control and started this massive wildfire that went onto the property of Los Alamos. And what happened is it burned canyons where they had dumped nuclear waste, toxic chemicals, all kinds of stuff since back in the 40s and 50s. So all that toxic waste was pulverized by this intensely high heat, became airborne, and was going to be a serious environmental problem for probably a very long time. So during that time, we started having really weird physical symptoms. Our pets were having physical symptoms. People all over the place were having physical symptoms, and everybody was trying to find out from the government what is really going on, what is the real danger here. And of course, you can probably guess that didn't go very well. So to make a long story short, there were lots of community meetings, experts were coming in, giving advice, and we finally concluded, because we had very young children at the time, that it was probably wise to move, because this was going to be a problem for a while in the winds and the soil. It was just bad. So at one point, we decided to go to Phoenix to go to a MUFON UFO conference. So my husband and I were attending the conference, and at the end of one of the last days, one of the last speakers was a man by the name of Nick Begich. And I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he wrote the book, Angels Don't Play This Harp, spelled H-A-A-R-P. Maybe you've heard about it. I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to talk about that here, but that's not really relevant. Anyway, so Nick is an expert on mind control, and one of his lectures was about mind control. So at the end of his lecture, was also the end of that day, we went up and we were talking to him, and people were leaving, and eventually there was just a very small group of people, us included, that were just talking to him and conversing and asking questions. Then he and a few other people were going to go have dinner, and they invited us to go with them. So we did. We went to a restaurant, we sat down together. And at some point in the conversation, I started to explain to Nick what we were struggling with around this fire, because the thing I forgot to tell you guys is what was so weird is we knew we needed to move, but we couldn't make ourselves do it. It was like there was something blocking us internally. We'd never had this problem before because we live very intuitively and we're very responsive to our intuition. And for some reason, it was like something was blocked and wasn't letting us act. It was the weirdest feeling. We were completely confused. So I was explaining this to him and I said, why would we be feeling this way? This is just so weird. So we were just talking back and forth and he was asking me some questions. And then at one point he asked me, he said, have you noticed if people are saying the same things about the fire, the same phrases, the same sentences? And I said, yes. And I told him what they were. I said, yes, people are saying exactly the same thing everywhere. It's really weird. And mostly things like, everything's fine, there's nothing to worry about, but they were using the same exact words. So what he told me, which was so fascinating, he said, whenever you see people everywhere using the same words, the same phrases, or the same sentences, you are likely looking at hidden mind control techniques being used on the public. And he was explaining to me how they can do this in a very completely hidden way. We're not talking about like the news media telling you stuff. He said they had technology, and this was a while ago, so you can imagine what they have now. He said they have technology, they could do this through any kind of electronic medium. Television, I think he said radio, phones, everything. And we're not talking about smartphones. This was just phones. So he said any electronic medium, they have the technology, they can put thoughts in people's minds without them even knowing it. And he said once they get those thoughts in there on a subconscious level, it's impossible to break free of it without you knowing what's going on. And he said that if that was going on, he said that was likely the reason that we were having this weird experience of being unable to move. Because you see, the way this situation was, it was really pretty dangerous, and it seemed like, you would have expected people to just be evacuating everywhere. I mean, there were a lot of people that were very concerned. People were leaving, but for the most part, most of the public was just repeating the same sentences, the same phrases, everything's good, everything's okay, nothing to see here. Even though there was plenty of evidence that there was a massive cover-up. So anyway, I asked Nick, well, if this is going on, how do we break free of this weird feeling that we just feel like we can't move? What do we do? And then he told me we had already taken the first most important step, and that was awareness. He said you need to be aware that it's even happening so that you have an opportunity to do something about it. It's because when you're not aware, he said there's just no way. You can't break its hold on you. So he said what we might have to do, since we were aware that this was a strong possibility, this was what was going on, he said you might just have to force yourself to move anyway. And it's going to feel very strange because you're just going to have to force yourself to do it, and that's probably the only way you can break that hold. So that's what we did, and sure enough, we found ourselves able to I won't say easily, but we found ourselves able to leave. And here's the really weird thing, you guys. We went to the East Coast, we moved to the East Coast, and after we moved there, I met a woman who had come to the US from Chernobyl in Russia with her husband, who was a doctor. And I was telling her my story about this fire and all of this stuff that had happened. And she was sharing her story about what happened to her and her husband and what happened to the people around Chernobyl. And we were so freaked out because exactly the same thing had happened. She said people were saying the same exact phrases, the same exact words. The pattern of what we had been through was the same exact pattern that she said they witnessed after Chernobyl. So now let me come back around to explain why I'm sharing this story with you. Now, I think I told you in my last video that Archangel Michael said that our spirituality was a major target for attack by the controllers because that's where our light and our power is. He said there was no way they're going to leave us alone in that area. Now, I've been feeling more and more that we are being secretly indoctrinated into a false version of ascension without our conscious awareness. So I want to bring your attention to the fact that people around the world are using the exact same words and the exact same phrases, just like in the story I just shared with you guys. How about everything happens for your highest good? Or everything is happening for you, not to you. Things like the light wins, or God wins, or we're winning. How about trust the plan? And if any of you guys can think of any other words or phrases that you notice as being repeated over and over by people around the world, put it in the comments below, because I'd love to know if you guys are even aware of this at all. And I'd love to know if you have any ideas that I haven't even thought of yet. See, all of those phrases and words that I just used as examples all lead to the same result. They lead to a result of us being more passive. They put us in a waiting mode. They put us into a belief of, oh, well, trust the plan and it's all going to work out and no worries about anything. Everything's fine. I mean, that's what it all adds up to. Kind of like no matter what's happening, it's all good. Now, there's another very strange thing that I've noticed. It's the common use of certain terms and phrases that we are now assigning to our spirituality, but which are actually words that are assigned and aligned with AI. The most significant and popular word that I will share with you as an example of this is the word download. Everybody's getting downloads, right? Now, when you talk about getting a download, you are talking about getting some sort of message or information from an unseen source outside of yourself. It's coming to you from the outside, and you may not know exactly from where. But it's just assumed that if it's a download, it's a good thing. Now, opening up to this idea is a wonderful way to have just about anything programmed into you from whatever source might want to control you. It's to get you used to the idea of having stuff downloaded into your consciousness. And this is ultimately a setup to get you to accept AI control of your consciousness, which could actually already be happening and you're not even aware of it. Because I'm pretty sure they already know how to do that without your knowledge. In fact, I'm certain they know how to do that. But see, being receptive to it makes it super easy for them to get away with it. Now, I do not ever get information through downloads. I have never had a need for that. I get information in a very different way. I get it naturally, not through downloads, you guys. I access information from within as it's needed. That's how it works in nature. I don't have anybody downloading anything into my consciousness. See, because you can't trust downloading. You have no idea where it's really coming from. But you can trust messages that come from within you. Those messages often take the form of an inspired idea or an inspired revelation, or just simply a totally natural state of knowing, of pure knowing. It really comes from a sense of living in communion with your own source energy. See, the word inspired means to be in spirit. It means that you are at one with your own infinite spirit, which immediately connects you to the entire universe. You don't need any downloads. So let's take a look at some other popular AI terminologies that we are now applying to our spirituality. We are told that the physical world is just a 3D matrix. We're told that this could just be a projection or a hologram. People throw around the term quantum field in a way that doesn't seem to really account for things like beauty and love. See, it's kind of like we're living in the field where everything is energy, so nothing really matters. I'm not saying there's not a quantum field. I'm just saying we got to pay attention to how we are perceiving all of these things. Now, I recently heard a spiritual influencer who has a very big following say that, well, this reality is just a simulation and our physical bodies are merely avatars. He said he bought one of those Oculus things, you know what they are, and that it's really just the same as this reality that we live in. You really can't tell the difference. Now, Guys, I found this a little bit alarming. So now we're saying that our physical bodies are just a 3D avatar and, we're getting downloads, we live in a matrix, and then add that to the belief that what you're experiencing really doesn't matter because you're just evolving. So it's all fine. Guys, do you see what a setup this is? We are being completely set up. We are being set up for the fake I ascension that I have been talking about. I actually had someone ask me recently, well, couldn't technology put us into 5D? I think that's actually the plan. So let me share with you exactly how this is going to work. They are programming us to experience our lives in a way that lines up with a real AI hologram matrix simulation, whatever you want to call it. They're messing with our energy and calling it ascension. See, they are trying to format our vibration to be close enough to AI that they can then effortlessly shift us into the real AI matrix, because we will already be kind of moving in that direction and we're just going to believe it's evolution or ascension. Now, how can you tell that this is going on? You can tell because they are trying to separate our consciousness from our physical experience and calling it some weird form of ascension into 5D consciousness. I always find it kind of interesting that 5D sounds so much like 5G. So when you see that they're trying to separate your consciousness from your physical experience, guys, this is nothing to play around with. I'm not kidding. Now, in my next video, I'm going to be talking about what real ascension looks like so you will be able to tell the difference. Now, one of the ways that you can tell that these AI terminologies being applied to our ascension process are suspect is because they don't mention anything about the heart. They don't mention anything about love. And what's so important to understand is that there is no real ascension without the heart and love at the center core of that experience. It's not about avatars and projected realities and a new matrix and all this other stuff. So anyway, I hope this gives you guys something to seriously consider when you hear people using these words and phrases in the very same way and these AI associated terminologies that are being applied to our ascension and human evolution. This is why it's so important to really pay attention to what I shared with you at the beginning of this video about staying connected to your heart and to your natural physical body. Because that, my friends, is your anchor to the real universe and to how natural ascension really works. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would benefit from this information. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and positive energy. And I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.